discipline. And this happened when my kids were little, and I realized I needed some new tools, and just started learning, and wanted to share with everybody the tools that were working. So I became a parenting coach. And as my kids got older, I realized that I needed a lot of help with online safety, cyber safety. What were good things to do? How much did I need to interfere and get involved? And I couldn't find the information. It was really hard to find good, solid information from other parents who had done this before me. And so I started specializing in cyber safety and conversations that parents should be having with their kids, and how to monitor what kids are doing online, just because I saw a need with my own group of friends. My kids are now 16, 14, and 12. So we're still in the middle of it. And things change day to day, right? What kids are interested in, and the games and the apps and the social media, it's all still changing at my house. So I keep staying current, and get to continue to talk with parents, and work with school districts and parent groups, as well as private work.
Yeah, and this is so important, especially now, because kids are online like all the time too.
Yes.
So, and I know I've heard a lot of, I don't know if you've heard a lot of this. I've heard a lot of my kids are on distance learning, and they're, finding YouTube while they're supposed to be in class, and they're doing this and they're doing that. I mean, this is like, it was relevant before, but it's so much more relevant right now with them basically living online. So I'm very excited are you seeing that as well before I move us on?
Absolutely. Even in my own family, right? Everybody has several tabs open, and they're multitasking. And I'm thinking about my 16-year-old. She's doing her AP history work, and she's chatting with people on Instagram, and she's doing 3 or 4 things at once. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree sometimes, right? I tend to have a few tabs open sometimes too. So I think we're all experiencing multitasking, and trying to live this digital world the best we can. And sometimes we need reminders that doing one thing well, and not code switching, not going back and forth multitasking, is actually better for our brain, better for our health, and we get more done. That's the other thing. If you're really interested in productivity, don't have all those tabs open, because we get less done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard though, because we're drawn. I mean, it's so hard. We have the pull, and that's one of the things I know you help with too. Is what do you do when kids have trouble blocking themselves? I know that you could talk about that at some point, about how we help them block as well, because the pull is there. I do want to say, before we jump in, those of you who are live, I will monitor the chat. So if you want to tell us your experiences as you hear what Lisa's saying, if you want to ask any questions while she's talking, we'll probably answer them at the end. But if you want to, have any input here, feel free. That's the benefit of being live. So I will monitor the chat. And Lisa, I guess the next question for you before you jump into the 5-step strategy is, what are you seeing this holiday season? And those of you who are here live, if you want to say if you're experiencing this as well, but what are you seeing? What are sort of the patterns that usually happen either this holiday season or in the past? What are you seeing kids doing?
What usually happens before this year, this is a weird year.
Yeah.
What usually happens is winter break happens, kids get new devices. They are not well supervised over the holidays, just because parents are distracted with all of the gifting and relatives in town and all of the things that are happening in addition to regular life. So kids tend to get into trouble. They stay up later. They tend to get in trouble online. What I call a digital crisis tends to happen when they're online for longer periods of time. With new devices that haven't been set up with the parental controls yet, because they just got them and they're so excited to use them that parents are like, yeah, I'll do that later. So that's something that historically has happened. This year, I think, is interesting because kids already are oversaturated with screen time, and parents are exhausted at this point. And so I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think a lot of kids are getting technology for Christmas still, or for the holidays, regardless of which you celebrate. But I think there's a lot of gifting that's happening, and excitement around games and things like normal. But it'll be interesting to see how the supervision and the parental controls either get set up this year or don't.
Yeah.
That would be one thing I would totally recommend before you gift a device or a gaming system, is to take a minute and figure out what parental controls are on that device and set it up in advance, so you don't have to try to wrestle it back and remember to do it later. It's so hard to remember to do that after.
Yeah, absolutely. It is so much, and I talk about this all the time, so much easier to be proactive. And I'm so
Proactive.
glad, I think parents just don't even think about it. So I'm so
Mm.
glad you brought that to the forefront. Just
Can
think, of
I recommend a site to go to?
course.
There's a site, it's free. It's called Bark-O-Matic with hyphens between the bark hyphen o hyphen matic.com. If you go there and you put in the devices that your kids are using and the gaming systems and all of the things that are online at your house, it will spit out parental controls for you based on the devices that you have. So you don't have to try to, Google all the different places and go to a bunch of different websites. You can just do that one thing and you've got a list. It's a long list at my house anyway. We have a lot of devices. So, it's a couple of pages, but if you go through that systematically, you can be done.
That's awesome that there's one place where to go. It saves that
And
time,
it's free.
and it's
Yeah.
even better. So time saving and free, even better. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Amazing.
all about that.
Anybody right now, we need our time to be saved. Wonderful.
Totally.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, I know you have a specific system for how to determine whether things are safe or not. Is that what your system is going to tell us?
It's how to do that and how to avoid conflict along the way, just by being really clear when we, like you said, when we set up things in advance and we're thoughtful about how we present it to kids, it goes so much better than, oh, here's a device. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't set up the thing. I got to do this. I got to do that. And you know what? I don't really like how you're using it. So we need to have another conversation. It's so much better to just proactively think about this for a minute.
Absolutely. That is so true. And just knowing how to approach it. A lot of parents ask me that. How do I approach it? So I know you're going to walk us through that. So do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's
Okay.
do it. So when I think about saying yes to an app or a game, I feel like our default answer as parents can be no. We can say no until you prove to me. This is for kids like 8 and up, I would think 7 or 8 and up. So when I think about what kids want, they want the latest games, they want social media, the older kids, they want to have a way to connect with their friends. And it's hard to know which ones to say yes or no to because there are so many and they change all the time. And our kids are changing all the time and what they're getting exposed to is changing a lot. So really, the first step to knowing when to say yes or no to a game or app is to check in with your values. Some games are an absolute no at my house, and we all have different values. But at my house, my boys have tried a couple of times to have Fortnite in our house, and it worked for a short period of time, and then they started raging after they were on Fortnite, and they were throwing their mouse around and slamming down their computers. And I looked up after a certain amount of this and I was like, why are we doing this? What are we doing here? This is crazy. And what I realized was they just get so amped up by this particular game and how they play it that it wasn't going to work. And we've tried it twice. They came back and we did this whole process again. Still didn't work. And that's okay. But when I check in with my values, what I know about those type of games is it's a shooting game. It's a first person shooting game. I'm not comfortable with that. So I'm not, it's just a no. I can check in with my values now and say, okay, if it's this type of a game, I already know it's a no. If it's this type of a social media thing where, strangers can instant message my kids or private message my kids, it might be a no. So checking in with the values and knowing where your hard lines are, those hard, bright lines, makes it so much easier because you don't have to think, oh, this particular one, no, if it's a first person shooter at my house, it's a no. So that's the first step is just
I
check
love
in with your
that
values.
too, because you're going to hear, well, this parent does this and this parent does that. When you're consistent with your values, it's so much easier to stay firm, because a lot of people say, well, I question myself. You don't have to question yourself. If this feels good to you as a parent, then you don't have to even question yourself. I love that. Okay, so check in with your values is number one.
Yes, yes. And then number 2 is take a couple of minutes, take 10 minutes to research what your child wants, the game or app that they want. Go to a site like commonsensemedia.org. It's a great website that has expert advice, it has parent reviews, and it has kids who review the product. So it gives you a good sense of, here's what the experts say versus what kids say. Maybe the experts say it's good for 12-year-olds and the kids are like, no, 6-year-olds, let's go. So it's a well-rounded site, and it's curated. So it's my go-to site when I'm looking at a new app or game. Do 10 minutes of research. Don't knock yourself out. Just do a couple of minutes to see what the dangers are, what the benefits are, what kids are saying that they love about it. Just take a couple of minutes and do that. And think about where the risks might be. Is there a chat feature on there where they could be cyberbullied? Is there some aggression, or have people talked about, getting addicted to this particular thing? So do a couple minutes of research. And then number 3 is let your child do most of the research. And even 7, 8, 9-year-olds can go off and get some factual sites, and with your guidance, do the research. Tell them that you expect them to talk about what the risks are and what the benefits are. And it's got to be more than, well, all my friends have it. That's a start, right?
And that matters, but that's not the only piece.
And it totally matters. But they've got to do a good job of selling it to you, the parent who needs to keep them safe. So they need to address the safety end of it as best they can. You would expect different things from a 7-year-old than a 12-year-old, but to at least start to talk about, from my mom's perspective, these are her values, and this is what's going to be a deal breaker for her. I already know this. I can anticipate how my mom's going to do, what she's going to say about this.
Yeah. I love, I talk about giving kids control, and I actually have a strategy called the joint problem solving strategy, which involves kids doing such a huge part of the planning and consequencing. And this is so aligned with that. Let them do research. We don't even think about that. So it's such a great strategy. I love that tip.
They have more time than we do.
Good point. I hadn't even thought about it that way. Not only does it give them a sense of control, but they have more time. I love that.
Yeah, they have the motivation, they have the time, they're going to make it a priority. And if we say, my mind is open, just come and give me your best case, they're also learning great negotiation skills. They're learning great research skills. If they come to you with some crazy website, you look at it and you say, do you think that's a factual website? Then you get into that conversation too about which websites, which sources of news can we trust and which are kind of questionable. There's so much that you can do with this.
That's awesome. Awesome. Very good. Thank you. What's the next step?
So the 4th step is to set up a time to talk and really take it seriously. Put it on the calendar. It doesn't have to be the same day. In fact, it shouldn't be the same day because they've got to prepare and you've got to do your 10 minutes. So when they say, can I have this game or app? You say, yes, let's talk about it in 2 days. I'm going to do a few things. I'd like you to do a few things. Let's talk about it, on the weekend this time. Here's what I want you to bring. And some parents have really taken this to a new level, and they're like, show me a PowerPoint slide about this. Give me your best. It turns into a research project where the standards are pretty high. And I like that approach. I'm a homeschooling mom. I don't homeschool anymore, but I love it when you're teaching real life skills. You're teaching negotiation skills and computer skills and ways to really state your point. This is my opinion. This is why it matters. So set up a time to talk, really value that appointment. Don't miss it.
Yeah.
Let them know that you're excited for it, and show up with curiosity. Show up with an open mind and curiosity about what they're going to say. Let them lead the meeting. That's the other part. You don't need to lead it. You're now the person who needs to be persuaded.
Absolutely. This takes so much work off of us. It's unbelievable. It's really, and I think, again, giving the kids a sense of control, a sense of responsibility. And like you said, they're motivated to really understand what's going on, what the drawbacks might be, so that they can convince you to look beyond. That's really, really smart. I love that. Make that time and let them run it.
Let them run it.
Yeah.
Let them run it. So then if they convince you that this is a good idea, what you say is, yes, let's try this for a week. Or here's what you say before that. You say, give me a demo. That's what I always do, is give me a demo. Because sometimes they persuade me, and then I look at it and I'm like, oh, no. Back to number 1. My values do not align with this whatsoever. So forget it. But after you've had the demo, then give them a week and make sure that if it's a yes, that it's a trial period. tell them it's a trial period. We're going to talk about this. We're putting it on the calendar for next weekend. And I want to observe your behavior during the game, after the game, during social media, after whatever it is. And we'll have a conversation next week. I just want to check in with you and see how it's going from your perspective. And you're going to hear how it's going from my perspective. So that really is the step that cannot be missed. Once you say yes, and it's a yes, then kids are off and running, and it's hard to get them to check in again. It's hard to pull back and have that conversation. But if they know that it's a tentative yes, if they know that it's a yes and we're checking in again because it's trial, I haven't said yes forever, then it's not so hard to pull back.
That's such a good point. And if anyone has done my joint problem solving strategy, it includes the revisit right there, what you just said. It's so important to revisit, because if they don't know it's going to be revisited, like you said, they're off and running. So that's really, really wise. Yes, as a trial period. And then actually, I think that motivates them to rein in their, any tantrums they might have about having to get off. I can imagine that's very motivating.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So then if it's like Fortnite at my house and you notice them raging, that's the conversation that you have. You don't even need to wait until a week, but if you want to wait, you can bring it up and say, hey, I see you treating your computer badly. Don't do that. At the end of the week, hey, I noticed on this day, this day, this, it doesn't seem to be working out. We need to pull back. And you can say pull back for a week, for a month. We can revisit it. But right now, it's a no. It's a no because of these reasons. It's affecting our family. I don't want to live like this. Yeah. I don't want to watch you rage around and be crazy. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, if they know what the problem is, and you can potentially even say to them, hey, the problem is you're raging when you're getting off of this. And then I'm so biased, but then we could teach them, how do you deal with your rage so that you can have your game back? That's actually an incentive for them to, I know a lot of kids are resistant to practicing their emotional, skills, but if they actually know they can get the game back, if they get the rage under control, that's a big motivating factor. So
that's what we really want. I love that you added that. That's what we really want. We want to be raising kids that can control their own rage, kids that grow into adults that are fully formed, healthy, mental and physical adults. And that's part of it, is just teaching them what they're feeling and what to do about it that's acceptable versus not.
Absolutely. I love using video games, which are such an incentive for so many kids, video games and apps, to motivate them to do the things like learning those emotional regulation skills, because on their own, they may not seem that interesting. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 steps. Is there anything that you want to add to those 5 steps, or I didn't mean to interrupt you?
No, that's really it. That's really it. The other thing that I would say, just in general, the 2 facts that I need parents to know today is that the average age that kids are seeing pornography is 11. So we need to have the internet filter on every single device that they've got, including your own devices, right? If they ever grab your phone and are Googling something because it's easy, or they're doing a math problem or whatever, you've got to have an internet filter that covers your whole family. The other thing is that 1 in 3 kids, teenagers, a little bit older group, are sexting. So they're sending nudes or they're sending inappropriate picture. 1 in 3. Those
when
2 statistics alone.
I saw this so often that number, makes sense to me. I saw that so often when I was a therapist for teens.
Yeah. It's increasing still, even with all the conversations around this is not okay. In some states, it's still a felony to send or receive, even if you don't want it, just to receive that information, that inappropriate photo, it's a felony still.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that to me gets into, well, why are they doing that to begin with? And that's where we get into the deeper issues, but those numbers are so important. So you have suggested in the past what internet blocking software you suggest. Do you still have that? Was it Circle or?
Yeah, you know what? Bark has, I used to recommend Circle, and I still love Circle. And what's happened is Bark now has an all-encompassing one solution instead of combining a couple of different solutions. And like you, easy, right? I want to keep it easy. So what Bark has is an internet filter combined with a time limiter, a screen time limiter. And the cool thing, I've never seen this before, is that they have school time and free time separated out. So you can say, these are the school time apps that they can have access to, like Zoom. And then this is after school time, they get entertainment, they get more stuff. You can also set a bedtime for your devices. And they do the extra step. What they're famous for is monitoring what kids are doing. Kids keep their privacy unless they're doing something inappropriate. Then parent gets an alert and parent gets to decide what to do about it. I love that because we have to continue to supervise screen time, even though it's invisible. We have to supervise that behavior so we know that they're acting appropriately, just like we do offline all the time. We've got to do that online too.
Absolutely. And that's all. I put the link to Barkomatic. That's all at Barkomatic for people.
No, Barkomatic is one thing that they do for free.
Okay.
And then I'll send you a link for the Bark products. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's a subscription based thing. I've got a coupon that's 20% off of the normal subscription. It covers the whole family. You don't have to cover every single child separately. To me, if you have kids that are texting or on social media or gaming, it's a no-brainer. You've also got to supervise them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always talk about, so I'm so glad you're mentioning these Bark products, because I talk about the line between privacy and being aware. That I also learned when I was a therapist, that we have to let kids know that we're checking, because there were a lot of teenagers and even younger saying, oh, well, my parents never check. But so we have to be checking. But here's the thing, and Lisa, you could probably speak to this more than I can, that they also know how to be smarter than we are. So we can check as much as we want, but we also have to have some other limits potentially, because they have workarounds, and we need to understand why they're motivated to find workarounds. That's where I tend to do a lot of my work. Why are they doing this? Why are they sending these pictures to begin with? But we also have to be aware that we need some constraints. We really, really do. So that's wonderful. So I want to open it to people who are live to ask questions. I'm going to allow you, Lisa, if there's anything else you want to say, go ahead and say that. But I also, those of you who are live, if you want to start posting questions, as Lisa is saying, anything else, feel free to do that, so that we're not waiting necessarily for the questions. So go ahead and start typing if you have them. Lisa, is there anything else you want to, I love those last statistics. Anything else you want to share or mention as we're waiting? And maybe not.
I think right now we're in such a unique time period. We're all really exhausted with what's going on. And I hate to put any more burden on parents as far as, you've got to go get this and this and this. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. It's absolutely appropriate for you to, as parents, to say, we have offline time. This period to this period is going to be offline time. Bedtime, absolutely don't keep the phones in the room or any devices in the room that have notifications going off. Here's another statistic. 36% of teens wake up at least once a night to check their phones.
Gosh, yeah.
And that's because I feel like that's because of two things. One, their friends always expect them to be on. And two, they have notifications for every single app they have. So it's constantly going off and they're like, oh, what was that? The brain can't ignore that sound. You get curious, you've got to go check it. So the best thing to do there is just get the devices out of the bedrooms.
Absolutely. I agree. Those are really, really good things. And I love that you said too, let's simplify it. Let's do this as simply as we possibly can. And there are automated ways to be checking. I mean, I'm so glad you mentioned these products and these ways to know what our kids are doing online. They don't have great impulse control. So they don't. So we need to be able to have, I know you talk about guardrails. They need to be able to have those guardrails, right? That's your term.
Yes. Yes. Parents need to be the guardrails, because when you think about a really twisty, dangerous road, you've got a mountain on one side, you've got a cliff on the other. And what we want is for kids to have a safe place to navigate the internet, to learn, to grow. We don't want to squash them as they're growing and turning into adults. We do, however, want to keep them in the safety zone so that they don't go off the cliff and we have big problems, big digital crises that we need to try to resolve on the other side. There's trauma that you can't get rid of once you're there. So it's important to try to keep them within the guardrails. Absolutely.
I agree. I love that metaphor. It's very, very helpful. So there is a question. I have kids that use the Minecraft app on the iPad. My youngest tells me he knows how to connect with other people, which shocked me. Do you know anything about this particular app? So it's Minecraft app on the iPad.
Yeah, so Minecraft is one that has different worlds and different people on different worlds. Some are private, some are open. So I would go to Common Sense Media, take a look at the different settings that you can have, and figure out what's right for your family, what's right for them at this point. Know that you can open it up later. Know that they can type chat with strangers potentially. So locking that feature down is important.
Yeah, and I know my kids who are 8 and 10 are both, they use the Minecraft app, and they are not allowed to talk to other people. So we have, there is a setting, we've turned it off. We don't have an iPad. We are not an Apple family, we're an Android family, but we've turned off that setting so they can't play with other people. And they can actually play with each other through our Wi-Fi in our house. And my husband's in IT, so he was able to figure out how that works, but they can talk to each other, but not other people. All of that is set up within the app. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah. And Minecraft is one of those apps that's fantastic in so many respects because you're being creative and you can meet up with your real friends. And like, there's so many different ways that you can use that. I know some schools are even using that for different projects and classes. It's amazing. And still, we've got to make sure that the privacy is covered. I'm glad you asked this question, and that we know who they're interacting with.
Absolutely. So another question, do you have any information on how to possibly control ads? I've seen this too, a lot of inappropriate ads.
We're not talking YouTube specific, are we?
I don't think so. And I have an answer to that if you don't, Lisa, because that's something we've dealt with too. And it's a little.
I don't have a great answer for that. I know I have on my own computer, I have an ad blocker. But it doesn't on YouTube. Still, the next video that's suggested doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what I was watching. And I know that's true for my kids too.
Yeah. We also have ad blockers too. And there is an ad blocker, and I can find out the information, but there is an ad blocker that we have on our computers because this was happening. Again, my husband's in IT, so he figured this out. And I can send that to you as well. Sarah, I think it was Sarah that asked. So I'll post it in the group because I'm sure everyone would want to know that. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Any other questions from those who are live? I know we're getting to the half hour too, so this is pretty good timing, but I want to make sure that we don't miss anybody. I also, as I'm waiting to see if there are other questions, Lisa, can you let us know where people can find you and how they can get more information if they do end up in a situation where they want to either just even be more proactive, or if they're in a situation where they're in crisis, how can they reach you?
Yes, you can find me at centerforonlinesafety.com. We have a blog that has lots of information for parents, especially as we were starting quarantine and everybody was trying to find offline activities for their kids. We've got some great handouts that you can put on the fridge, over 100 things that kids can do that are offline. They're mostly free. They mostly don't take parent time. So it's like the trifecta of awesomeness. Yes, you can find me at centerforonlinesafety.com. I'm on Facebook too. You can look for Center for Online Safety. We've got a course that's just coming out now called the Family Tech Reset, because so many families are coming to us with, oh my gosh, this is so out of control. I used to have rules around this. And what has happened? Well, 2020 happened. So it's less than 2 hours, and it gives parents a chance to reset what's happening with technology and start 2021 off strong.
I love it. The timing could not be better too. I'm so excited that that is out. Everybody needs a tech reset. And with the beginning of the year, I mean, I just think that's amazing. That's awesome. I would love to add a link to that with the notes to this video, if you have that as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. I do see another question. If my 7-year-old wants more of an online presence like Messenger and Minecraft, I worry that 7 is too young. Is there a good place for us to get started?
Doing it together is really the best strategy. Sitting with your 7-year-old and asking, what do you want to do? Tell me more about how this is going to help you. Show me what you want to do. Like, just really having that. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I hope you like Minecraft because you're going to be there for a while. But really, that's
how much I know about Minecraft, because like, I don't need to know what I know about Minecraft. Yeah.
But it's the same thing when our little toddlers love dinosaurs or Hot Wheels. I have a 14-year-old who was so into Hot Wheels that I had to know every single car going down the highway for a period of about a year. I had to really get good at the emblems and the everything. And that's what we need to do as they get older. What they're into changes, but the fact that they're into it means that we need to pay attention too. So really my best advice is sitting with them and seeing how they want to use it and what they're lacking right now when they're not using it. I would say in general, 7 is early for that, but every family's different, every child's different.
Do you have any thoughts about, and you may not, I'm putting you on the spot, but about ages when that might be more appropriate? Do you have guidelines, or do you think it's really just up to the family?
I think 10 is a great age for that kind of thing, because by then, ideally, parents have had a lot of conversations about what's appropriate. And if a stranger does this, then this is how you need to react. Gaming is not often talked about, the amount of bullying and just meanness there is, especially when I know it's an issue on Fortnite. When a new player comes in, sometimes they are severely bullied with words, and people gang up on them in the game. So it's important just to know that there's bullying out there in this cyber world that we need to be aware of, and check in often and have a lot of conversations with kids before we give them access to greater and greater things.
Yeah. And that's why if a 7-year-old were to start with like Minecraft, just keeping it not, they can't talk to people outside of the game, which we were talking about the settings before. Messenger, I don't know, are there settings on Messenger that only certain people can communicate? My kids aren't on Messenger yet, so I don't know that much about it.
Are we talking the kids version of Facebook Messenger?
I don't know. This message just said Messenger. That's my guess. Is the kids version? Is there a version of Messenger?
Yeah, I think there's a way to lock it down. The bigger issue is one nobody wants to think about, which is how the information is being used. I don't know how many people have seen The Social Dilemma, but it's a great documentary about social media world, including Facebook, and how we are being manipulated every time that we're on social media. We're being manipulated and studied, and it's a depressing movie, and it's one that I think is necessary for everybody to watch and understand, that the earlier that kids are using any kind of social media, including Messenger, kids version, the more they're getting studied, the more they're becoming a commodity.
Yeah. Yep. It's something to think about. I do think that's an important documentary. I know Lisa, you and I have talked about doing something in conjunction with the documentary, because it's so important for parents to know about it. So the name of the movie, Lisa, it's The Social Dilemma.
The Social Dilemma. Yeah, you can find it on Netflix.
Yep. Absolutely. So stay tuned for that, because we may do something in the academy and even larger with The Social Dilemma, because Lisa and I are both very passionate about preventing some of that from happening. And as someone, honestly, who runs Facebook ads for my business, or I don't now, but I used to, it's amazing how targeted you can make those ads based on the information they're collecting. That's why people love Facebook ads. Mm-hmm. And that is true. They're collecting information about people. So yeah, The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
All right. I think we wrapped up with questions. I don't want to take too much more of your time or anybody else's time, but thank you, Lisa, so much again for being here and for sharing your expertise. I hope people reach out. I will obviously post your information and some of the apps that you mentioned. And thank you all who are either here live or who have watched the replay to this point. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.